Influencers, they are all over our social media feeds. Every time I open up one of my social media apps, a new influencer has popped up doing performative, theatrical things to really get their message across and to quote unquote influence and impact people across the masses. And as communicators, we can sometimes feel that pressure in order to become an influencer in order to get our message across. Now, whilst that method is not fundamentally flawed, there is a big difference between being an influencer and being influential. And one of them is going to make you a much more collaborative, empathetic, and impactful communicator than the other. So in this video, we're going to look at the differences between those two concepts and how you can harness their power in order to become a better communicator as a healthcare professional with your patient. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Thank you very much always for your attention, presence, and the support that you've given me on this channel. My name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps healthcare professionals from non-English speaking backgrounds. So in other words, you speak a little bit of English, you're quite fluent at it, but your first language is another language. It could be a European language, it could be a Latin American language, it could be a Middle Eastern language. You either are living in one of those countries or you're living in an English-speaking country. You're working as a healthcare professional and you work with patients every single day. And you're looking at improving your communication skills, not just your English fluency, but your communication skills overall, in order for you to connect better, collaborate better with, and build influence, trust, and authority with your patients. So if you fall under that category and you want to learn more about what are some of the strategies and tips that you can incorporate in order to become a better communicator with your patients, you've absolutely come to the right place. So like I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, a lot of us now are living under the influence, quote unquote, and pun intended, in the influence of influencers. They are all over social media. It's not just on Instagram and TikTok, even on LinkedIn, which is where I mainly promote myself. There's so many influencers. And by no means am I dissing influencers for what they do. Some of them do an incredibly good job. I follow quite a few of them on all my social media platforms. Some of them are genuinely good and they're also doing some really good work in their chosen field of niche. However, being an influencer can sometimes put a lot of pressure on us if we want to communicate and get our message across. You might feel like, oh, in order for me to really get my message across and make it impactful, so that people remember me and how I contributed and what I said and how I made them feel, I have to become an influencer. So that means I have to obviously put all this makeup on, get a ring light out, and get my camera or my phone, film a video, and prepare a script and literally read off the script. And that's what people think you have to do in order to become an influencer. And whilst that may be true, it's a very different situation when you're talking about building influence and building trust, building authority, making an impact, and contributing and collaborating in a field like healthcare. So yes, you can be an influential communicator as a healthcare professional without being an influencer. So let me just now dispel some of the myths for you, and also let's now go into some of the differences between both the words of what an influencer is and what being influential is. So I'm going to highlight some of the differences, and then we will look into how we can become a much more influential communicator. Number one, influencers are performative and being influential is authentic. So like I mentioned in the very beginning, being an influencer means that now, because of social media and the narrative that it has fed us, that in order to be a good influencer, these are the things that you have to do, these are the things that you have to say, these are the challenges and trends that you have to keep up with. So it's very, very performative, and it's almost like you're like an actor and you're doing something that you have to pretend to be someone that you're not in order to get the attention, get the validation, get people to follow you and things like that. And unfortunately, you as healthcare professionals, not just healthcare professionals, people in general who want to build influence, this is what they get sucked down into. They get sucked down into the metrics of how many followers I have, how many likes am I getting, how much of my video has been watched, how many times has it been reshared, and how many comments have been left, and things like that. So all these really shallow metrics is what we sort of judge ourselves on when we think we have to build an influence. But in reality, being influential is being authentic. So you're not putting on an act, you're not putting on any kind of performances. You are speaking straight from your heart, and you're also being authentic and genuine. So for example, if you look at my videos that I'm filming for you right now, none of them have anything fancy or, influencer-like about them. Not only do I not want to be an influencer, that's not my goal on this channel whatsoever, but also it's not doing anyone any justice in terms of what I want to help, in the way I want to serve and empower my clients. But at the same time, I'm someone who always goes on and on about being authentic, speaking from the heart, being genuine, telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. I'm talking about our patients here. So a lot of it is very unpolished. A lot of it is very in your face, and I just tell it like it is, and I'm very direct. Now, whether it can influence or impact whoever is watching this video in one way or the other. People may love it, people may hate it, people may want to unsubscribe from it, people may want to get me cancelled. I'm aware of that, and it really doesn't bother me whatsoever. The important thing is that what I'm saying to you is not rehearsed, it's not scripted, it's all coming straight from the heart, and it's something that I feel genuinely passionate about. So again, being an influencer, we can sometimes think of people as someone who has, a lot of followers, someone who, looks a certain way, tries to look really pretty, quite polished, and is very confident, very much of a badass, I would say, and also even has the right grammar or the right accent. A lot of people who are speaking English as a second language fall into that trap. I need to have the perfect accent. I need to, tone down my accent that I was born with in order to build influence and trust. And the way I coach my clients is the exact opposite. That's not the way that I want people to do it. So, it's not about you shouldn't try to copy other people. You shouldn't try to sort of say that, if I do this, if I try to be like my the other colleagues that I work with who speak English as their first language, who are native speakers, and I'm going to be able to build trust, influence, and authority. Let me give you an example of my GP, who's the longest GP that I've worked with. I've been consulting with her for almost 6 years till date. She's got a Chinese Asian background, and she's got a very strong Chinese accent. She speaks really good English, but her accent has never been a factor that has sort of made me decide not want to work with her. On the other hand, I've had GPs in the past who didn't have an accent or didn't have, an Australian accent or one way or the other, didn't have their native accent, and they just did a good job. And that's why I chose not to work with them. So that's why the accent was not a determining factor. As a patient, I was not looking for performance. I was looking for someone who was real, reliable, and trustworthy, which 100% is what my GP exactly is. Now, the next part highlight of difference that I'd like to highlight is that influencers go for vanity, whereas people of influence, they look for depth and connection. So like I mentioned in the very beginning, if you are a typical influencer, you think that having a lot of followers, a lot of connections, a lot of likes, a lot of reshares, a lot of comments, that means that I have built influence. One of my own business coaches, Sari Masadi, says the same thing about how you have to come up on LinkedIn. You have to approach LinkedIn as a business, not if you want to actually make money as a coach on LinkedIn. You have to approach it as a business and try not to be an influencer. And I completely agree with him in that respect. So being influential versus being an influencer is, as I know, is a completely different kettle of fish. It's not about how impressive you sound. It's about how deeply you connect and how clearly you communicate in whichever language your choice is. So I'm not just talking about linguistically, but also culturally, as well as emotionally and mentally. So for example, even when you can have, you're someone who's a healthcare provider who could be an introvert, who doesn't say many words, but who actually knows, through your actions, through your gestures, how to make your patients develop and build trust in you and leave the consultations feeling really good and empowered and positive, you are very influential regardless of what language that you speak in. And you have left that impact on them and you've given them a very positive experience. And that is exactly what a good healthcare provider is supposed to do, regardless of what language you're speaking. So being influential means that your words stay with people, words, actions, and everything long after the consultation has been finished. Now, I'm also just going to briefly touch on why trying to perform as an influencer can do more harm than good. So it's quite dangerous if you're trying to overperform. So, because like I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, that being an influencer is really, it's a performative act, more or less. And a lot of ESL healthcare professionals, they overcompensate for their language skills by trying to do more in conversation. So trying to use the right words, very fancy medical jargon, terminology, and language, which patients 9 out of 10 cases don't really understand it. More explaining and trying to phrase all the words and sentences perfectly. But here's the truth: your influence doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what you make the patient feel when you say it, regardless of what you say. So, for example, if you are somebody who's say a therapist, for example, and you are trying to you can do one of two things. You can say to the patient or your client that you have you are showing symptoms of depression or anxiety, and you're just telling them, let's try this therapy, that's going to work really well for you. Let's try that modality, it's going to make your symptoms go away. Now that might sound really influential, and that's what probably the mainstream narrative is. But flip that around, and if you say that yes, you are showing symptoms of trauma, whatever the case may be, and and say if you're trying to deliver some sort of a bad news to them, you can say to them, I know this isn't easy, I'm not here to judge you, I'm here to walk with you and go through this journey with you as a teammate. So if you say that, see how much of a difference it makes when you just switch the language and what words you say. So here in this instance, what you've done is you've gone off the path of giving recommendations and sort of giving advice to actually building influence and building trust and authority. And what you really needed at this time was to have empathy, timing, and coming from a genuine place, not really to have a perfect accent or using the right words, regardless of what it is. And finally, how can I become, as a healthcare professional, much more influential? It's very important that you speak less to impress and more to connect. So keeping the language simple, especially with patients who don't know any better, is much, much more effective and collaborative and will build more impact, trust, and authority than sophisticated language. Plain and simple. Always ask for more than you advise. So building influence and becoming influential begins with understanding where your patient is coming from and validating their feelings and their concerns. The more you ask, especially in-depth questions, the more they will trust you and they will feel like this person cares about not just my symptoms but me as an individual, and that's what will get them to open up, and that's when you can really build your influence, so to speak. Don't perform communication, personalize it. Your patient, they're not audiences. You're not doing your job to get more followers or to get more credentials and all that. And it's much more important that you serve, as long as you have built influence with a few if you've built influence deeply with a few small number of patients than trying to appease to every single patient out there, your job will be so much harder. Whereas if you focus on building depth and quality rather than getting more and more patients, because when you're trying to be an influencer, your patients are not an audience. They are a person in pain, confusion, fear, and are feeling vulnerable. Speak to them and not at them. So these are some of the ways in which I have differentiated between what being an influencer is and being influential is, and how you can incorporate steps in both ways in order to become a much more effective, collaborative, and impactful communicator as a healthcare professional. So stay tuned for more content on how to become a much better communicator as a healthcare professional and get more tips and strategies in order to do just that. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell on this channel. Comment on what you learned from this video and share your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. And make sure that you are sharing this video with somebody who could benefit from it. And as always, thank you very much for your time, attention, and presence, and I will see you next week.